Quite simply, you're not going to boss through your language GCSE papers if you are not a boss of analysing language methods. In this little video here, I'm going to share with you 4 groups of methods, and within each of those 4 groups is 4 actual specific methods. So that's 16 language methods that if you know and if you can apply effectively, you will get great marks. Now the reason why these 4 groups are so important is because each of these groups has a very specific effect. This video is about moving you away from it sticks in the reader's head, moving you away from it makes it stand out, moving it away from is it adds impact, all those silly empty phrases that don't get you any marks at all. This session here is about giving you the tools to be far more precise and far more specific. So let's get to it then. 56 marks across the 2 papers are directly focused on you analysing your language methods. So these 16 devices, if done effectively, can get you almost over to the pass mark, okay? Because you're only going to need 76 to actually pass for a grade 4. If you are applying them effectively in your question 5s and you're analysing them properly in your section A's, well, you don't need to be a maths genius to know that you're going to do very, very well in your language GCSEs, okay? Now, let's go through some basics. Language does one of 2 things. It can either tell us information or it can be like a mirror and reflect the topic. As we go through these 16 devices, you will see how some of them tell us information, like connotations, whereas others mirror what is going on, such as sentence types, okay? We'll come back to that more. Now, in our method toolbox, as I said a moment ago, we have got 4 groups, okay? These guys, these writers here, they've got 4 weapons in their armoury, okay? Weapon number 1 is figurative language. Talk about that shortly. Second one's alliteration. The third is words. And then finally, we've got sentences. This is what students from all over the country are scared of talking about. Very few folks go into their actual GCSE and have the bravery to actually talk about sentences, but they're not scary, and I'm going to show you why in a little while, okay? So, let's take each of these groups in turn. Figurative language. So figurative language is any time the writer is comparing something to something else, okay? So let's have an example. If someone is talking about someone who is writing, so not writing, someone who's walking, okay? Someone who's walking along. Now the writer is going to be thinking, what image do I want the reader to have of the way they're walking, okay? Are they walking somewhere because they're as happy and as delighted as a little schoolgirl? In which case we might go for some figurative language, he skipped to work. He's not actually skipping, but skipping puts the image in my head of a little girl having a lovely time, so therefore that's what I think about the guy who's walking. Maybe actually, instead, he's going there for a purpose. He's got a mission. He needs to go to that place because he's going to do something quite important, like a soldier. Well, in that case, he might use the figurative language. He marched to work. You get the idea. Again, walking. Actually, he's going to go there and be quite a threat. He's going to go there because he's going to be dangerous, a bit like a snake. Well, he's slithered to work. Now, those 3 very different words all put 3 very different images in the reader's head, and all of them tell us something different about the way this guy is walking. Okay? There are 4 types of figurative language. These 2 you'll probably have known from year 7. This one you're probably highly comfortable with. The only one that might be a little bit different is this one, zoomorphism. Okay? Similarly, is any time when we're comparing something to something else, using like or as, and there's an example if you need it. Metaphor is when you're doing that literally. So you compare something to something else, but literally. There's no way it can be anything other than that. The other 2 are types of metaphors. So if in doubt, it's either a simile or a metaphor. But if you can remember 2 more, the first one is personification. So that's when you give something that's not a human features, so it sounds human-like. And the last one is zoomorphism, which is exactly the same as personification, but with animals instead. So the icy wind clawed at my skin. If you don't know these 4, you're going to find analysing figurative language super difficult. So make sure you've got them on lock. Now, as we're saying, the reason why figurative language exists is so that the reader has an image put in their mind, okay? So that means whenever we are analysing figurative language in our GCSE, we should be thinking about what the image is, okay? So, for example, he slithered into the room, or the wind clawed at his face. First of all, what is the image that comes to mind? So slivered, I think something threatening, something dangerous. Clawed, I think it's something that is causing pain, something that scars, something that I will not ever be able to like unshackle from my face. So therefore, what does that tell me about the topic? Well, if the guy is slivered into the room, well, that means he's a threat, that means he's a danger, that means he's going to do something that he knows is wrong. If the wind has clawed at his face, that means the fact the wind is causing actual agony, is causing actual scars upon him. Okay? So those word choices we've been able to analyse effectively because we considered the image. Next up, alliteration. Now alliteration is when there are similar sounds that are grouped together. For example, let's have this one. Okay? Now this one is a great way of just going through some key little rules about alliteration that people sometimes forget or misplace. Okay? All of these are examples of alliteration. So even though it's in the middle of the word, cackles, that sound in the middle of the word is still alliteration because it's a deliberate sound that's been chosen. The words don't need to be right next to each other, so these are spread out across the sentence, still alliteration because they are a conscious choice of the writer. They decided to go for these sounds. And then finally, it's the sound, not the letter. So Q8 is obviously a different letter to cacophony, but it's still part of the same alliteration because cacophony and Q8 both create the same k sound. Okay? Now, 4 types of alliteration for you to get your head around, and these are wonderful because they have given the Lord of the English language gave you a massive clue with the first letter of each one. Okay? So sibilants, well, that's alliteration with S sounds. Silent, snow-trodden streets of Seattle. Plosives are any sounds that got a p or a b. Both of them you have to shut your mouth for a split second. For a split second you're not breathing. P, b. Okay? They're called plosives, the big balloon burst. Next we've got assonance. Assonance is any vowel sounding alliteration. So they are our soft sounds, A, E, I, O, U. So the ambitious aardvark when adventuring. Oh, they're lovely, nice and soft and gentle. Last one's alliteration, which is anything else. If it is not a vowel, if it is not a P or a B or it's not an S, then it's just straight up bog standard alliteration. Okay? Now, the reason why these are so important is because obviously they make very different sounds. These tend to be long, drawn out, threatening sounds. These are short, sharp, sudden, unexpected. These ones are soft, gentle, calmer. These ones can be a bit of all sorts, but they tend to be quite harsh and short. Okay, if you think of k, t, heart consonant sounds tend to be short and harsh and short. Okay. Now, so the writer has chosen these sounds because of the sound that they create. So if you go for this one, the silence of the shadows, well, we are finding our, sibilants. Then, how would you describe the sound? There's 2 ways you can describe the sound, okay? Number 1, you can either talk about the sound itself. Is it long, is it short, is it drawn out? So this S sound is a long, soft, unpleasant sound. We don't like to hear S, yeah? Everyone wants to go, it's a snake. There's no snake here, but anything that hisses is a problem. If a boiler is hissing, that's a problem. If a radiator is hissing, that's a problem. If a cat is hissing, that's a problem. Hiss is a threat, is a problem for us. So it might describe something. The sound could be described as being long, being drawn out, and being threatening because it echoes the hiss of a danger. Okay. So we've got 2 ways we can analyse that language. What does it sound like and how does it echo? Either way, whichever one we want to use, then what does it tell us about the topic? So if it echoes a threatening hiss, well, that tells me that the silence of these shadows is threatening and dangerous for us. If the sound is long and drawn out, well, that tells me this silence is also long and drawn out, that it doesn't seem to want to end. Okay? So, that's 2. Now, words. Words, pretty straightforward, okay? Now, words can be analysed in 2 different ways. They can either be analysed on their TOD, so on an individual basis. So if I was reading this little extract here, crashed, I like the word crashed, I can analyse the word crashed. If I want to be getting top marks though, I want to be looking at that word as a group, and we call this a semantic field or a lexical set, okay? So if you look here, ripple, tidal wave, drowning, they're all part of the same semantic field of the sea, okay? So I can either talk about them as individuals, or I do exactly the same process that I'm about to show you, but as a group, okay? There are billions of different types of words. Most of the time, you're going to be coming down to these four, okay? If you're going to look at a word, that is something worth talking about, these are the ones you want to be, these are the ones you're probably going to be leaning towards. You're either going to be talking about nouns. So nouns are names or places, names of places, things or objects. Verbs are actions, walking, singing, laughing. An adjective is a describing word. And an adverb is any word that is a word that describes the verb, describes how something is done. Okay? Those are the four most common ones. Now, whenever we talk about words, we're talking about connotations. So whenever a writer has chosen those words, it's because of the connotations that come with it. So if we go back to the one we had at the start, that crashed through his soul, let's talk about that word crashed, okay? First of all, we're thinking connotations. What connotations do we think of crash? Now, the skill here is don't go for the obvious. How many people in the country are going to go, crashed? Oh yeah, that's when there's an accident, or when two things collide, or when someone gets hurt, okay? Yeah, let's go a little bit deeper though. For me, a crash is unexpected. I wasn't expecting to crash my car yesterday, but I did. A brace for impact. If I'm going to crash for that split second, I have to tense and brace myself to make sure I don't get hurt, and it is going to cause me pain. If those are the connotations that it makes me think of, then that lets me have some real nice analysis when I then link it back to the topic. How does that reflect the topic? Well, the character wasn't expecting the emotional pain. He tried in vain to stay strong because he braced himself, and because he's in the face of this emotional onslaught because it's so painful. The more precise my connotations, the more perceptive and quality the interpretations I can make. Right, our final one is sentences. Now, sentences are, as I say, the ones that people get worried about, okay? Let's break it down, nice and simple. Sentences are as simple as driving a car, okay? Car is driving. Now, if you think about when you drive your car, or you're probably far too young to be driving your car yet, but when you think about you are in a car with your parents or guardians or whatever, that car, if it is going on a short journey, it's going to take a very quick time to get there, yeah? When it is a long journey, it's going to take a very slow time to get there. That's fairly simple, okay? When we are pushing the foot on the accelerator, the car is going forwards, like this one, whereas if we put our foot on the brake, well, that means it slows down. Sentences are exactly the same, okay? Let's have a look. So short sentences are going to be quick. It doesn't take us long to go from there to there in the sentence, if it's short. Long sentences are slow. It takes me much longer to read a massive long sentence that goes on 2 or 3 lines. These two things here, the things that would power our pace, are our words, make us go, go, go. When there is words, we are reading at a pace. But then we slow when we get to our commas, when we get to our punctuation marks, okay? So, the same principles of driving we apply to our sentences, okay? So, if we apply that to these 2 examples here, we've got he slammed the accelerator to the floor. Well, that's a very short sentence. It doesn't take us very long to get from the front to the end, and it's just words. There's no punctuation in there, so it's go, 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 super quick. Therefore, that would reflect the unbroken speed of the car. Really quick sentence without any pauses, reflecting the really quick journey of the car without any pauses, okay? If we had this big fat long sentence, which has got loads of different punctuation marks in it, well, that long sentence makes it very slow, very difficult to get through, and all those punctuation marks slows us right down, makes it very disjointed, makes it very broken, okay? That would therefore reflect how long that journey is, how slow it is, and all the interruptions as we go along our journey, okay? There are 4 types of sentences to be aware of, okay? Simple is our most common one. Simple are ones that have just got one independent clause, so one little thing that makes sense on its own. ED played in the snow. A compound sentence is when there's two clauses stuck together, but they could both make sense on their own. So, Arthur was crying and Mum was sleeping. Those are 2, if I took out the and, those 2 still make perfect sense, okay? Complex is when there is a part of the sentence that relies on the rest of it. So despite the cold and the ice, the children still played outside. So if I didn't have that last bit, despite the cold in the ice, it doesn't mean anything to us, okay? A minor sentence is also sometimes called a fragment in some places, where there is no clause. A clause is where it's got a subject and a verb, as you see on the top here. If it's missing one of those two things, like brr or no, stop, those are all minor sentences, okay? But as I say, we don't want, and this is what some people do, it's a complex sentence reflecting the complexity of the situation. No, that's just the word type, that's just the key term, okay? We're not interested in that, we are interested in the pace. So, the wind clawed at his face. What does that tell us about the pace then? So what's the pace of sentence? Well, that's very quick. There's no punctuation marks in it, it's very, very quick. So therefore, what does this mirror about our topic? Well, it shows how quick the wind is going, how there is no pause or let up in the intensity of the wind, okay? And that is it. If I know those four groups, and I know those four effects, it makes my language analysis so much easier, okay? What we want to try and do when we are analysing language, so that's question 2, question 4 in paper 1, question 3, question 4 in paper 2, is these 3 steps. Every layer of our analysis should have a focus, it should have an effect, and then we should link it back to the topic. If I know these 4 groups, and I know these 4 effects, well, that makes it very easy for me. Because there's my 4 focuses. The writer uses complex sentence, the writer uses sibilance, the writer uses a simile, wherever it might be. This creates an image of, or this creates the sound of, this creates the pace of, and we are making a far more perceptive, far more precise, far more thoughtful analysis of our language than the person down the road who's going and sticks in the reader's head, or it makes it stick out, okay? Therefore, it gives us an opportunity to create layers like this. The zoomorphism stinging creates an image of an unstoppable, sharp and sudden pain that usually comes in a swarm. This demonstrates how many raindrops falling and how the acute pain that was unexpected and agonising without cure. This is from a random piece of text where we have got our focus of our methods, this is the effect of it, and this is how we link it back to the topic. Don't be afraid to be quite formulaic in your structure. It's not a problem to be very, very clear and therefore quite simple in the way you explain things. Create an image of an unstoppable. There are some folks who look at that and go, oh, that's a bit clunky for me and I want to be a bit more varied, a bit more pretty. Crack on, enjoy yourself, do it. No extra marks for that whatsoever. The quality of the marks are for the interpretations that are being drawn, okay? So if you need to be quite formulaic, the examiner will love you for it because the examiner who's looking for, do they know their key terms? Yes. Do they know their evidence? Yes. Can they give precise and specific analysis? Yes. Can they link it back to how it communicates the writer's meaning? Yes. The more formulaic you are, the happier your examiner will be and the more marks you will get. Okay? Formulaic structure. The, something, assonance, simple sentence, metaphor, creates, then pick your root, pace, image, sound or connotation, and this mirrors, tells us what? Focus, effect, link, and if you can abide them 4 groups to memory, you've got your focus, and if you can abide them 4 effects to memory, you've already got your effects. So all you've got to worry about on fight night, in your actual exam, is linking it back to the topic that the examiner gives you. Thank you.